to the Prophecy Club. The topic of today is actually food, specifically food shortages, and how the gasoline shortage right now with the big pipeline is actually kind of a harbinger. It's kind of a warning letting us know that this is the next thing coming up. But before we get into that, I want to set a little scene to it. I remember in talking with Lindsey Williams, and I also read this in his book, he was talking with some of the people that own and control the world's oil. And the guy that he was talking to, which was the fella that gave him all kinds of inside information, turned to him and said, and they were talking about the protesters that would protest, well, you can't drill in this area because this is the spotted owl area, the environmentalists. Now, here's the point. So this guy in control, this person that is part of the elite rulers, turned to him and said, well, now, Lindsay, you know that we control both of them. In other words, the elite control the oil of the world, but they also control the environmental protesters. In other words, those protesters protest where and when they're supposed to protest. In other words, they're hired, and they are fired, and they're told what they are to do. And I think that that's kind of some things that are going on in the nation right now. Now, hold on to that thought. We're going to come back to that. I got this in an email, and I thought it was very appropriate for today, from the Nuremberg trial of 1945. Hermann Goering was asked the question, how did you get the German people to accept all this? He replied, it was easy, and has nothing to do with Nazism. The only thing a government needs to do, now listen carefully, the only thing a government needs to do to turn people into slaves is fear. If you can find something to scare them, you can make them do anything you want. See, that's what's happening now, in my opinion, in two things. One is with the gasoline immediately, but it's soon to be food. Now, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the control that the cabal, when I say the word cabal, I'm talking about the Moloch and Baal worshippers, these people that have owned and controlled most of the world, especially the banking systems, for over 300 years, and truth be known, probably thousands of years they have controlled the world. They like to stay hidden in the shadows. Matter of fact, that's one of the more difficult things to do, is to simply find them, much less find what they have done. How does the cabal control the news? Oh, I know what you're going to say. Well, they own the stations. Wrong. They do, but that's not how they control the news. They control the news because they own both sides of the news. In other words, they own the oil, but they also own the protesters that are protesting about the environment. They own both sides of the issue. How do they control the news? Not controlling the stations, controlling both sides, both conservative and the left. Oh, that's not true, you say, because Fox is not controlled by them. Fox is not owned by them. Actually, yes, it is. As a matter of fact, let's talk about the word Fox. We see Fox on 20th Century Fox, Foxfire browser, all kinds of Fox names. Now, I have to give you a disclaimer. I'm not necessarily saying anything about these companies whose name includes the word Fox. Some of them, it may be just a word, just a name. Means nothing at all. On the other hand, to some of them, it is not just a word, and it does mean something. Okay, so what does Fox mean? Okay, so here's what you do. You put 1 through 9 across the top of the page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay? Underneath that, you put A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, okay, and you number it, and then you do the second line, 1 through 9, the third line, 1 through 9, okay? It says the highest single-digit number is 9. So you have 3 rows of 9, and then you put the alphabet underneath those. Now, here's what you find. If you go down to the 6th letter, well, let's see, what would that be? A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, so you go to the 6th letter in the first line. Then you go to the 6th letter in the second line, and it's an F. You go to the 6th letter in the third line down, and it's X. So, FOX is short for saying 666. So when I see 20th Century Fox, to me, it's really saying this is the 20th century version or 21st century version of 666. Okay, what is another thing that kind of points toward FOX is real bad? Well, I looked this up in the Wikipedia, so this is word for word from them. Guy Fawkes Night, also known as Guy Fawkes Day, Bonfire Night, and Fireworks Night. Now, for you to understand this, I have to spell it to you. Guy Fawkes is the name of a person, spelling last name Fawkes, not Fox, but Fawkes. It's an annual commemoration observed on the 5th of November, primarily in the United Kingdom. Its history begins with the events of 5th November, 1605, when a guy by the name of Guy Fawkes, a member of the Gunpowder Plot, was arrested while guarding a large amount of explosives that had been placed underneath the House of Lords, celebrating the fact that King James I had survived the attempt on his life. People lit bonfires around London. Okay, now what it doesn't say is they had placed a large amount of explosives. The Catholics had Guy Fawkes, who had placed a large amount of explosives underneath the Parliament, underneath where the House of Lords were, and when they were in session, they were going to set it off and blow up the House of Lords, including King James I. If they had done that, there would be no King James Bible today. Now, it goes on telling all about the celebrations. Well, for short, my suspicion is that, see, Fox is a Catholic network. You do understand that. Now, we want to say that Fox is good, and I have to say he's a lot better than the alternative. But as far as I know, there is not a Christian television news network. The closest we come is Fox. So again, how does the conspiracy, the cabal, how do they control the oil? They control the oil company and the environmentalists. So how do they control the news? They control the left and the right. They control the left and the right. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite poems, and I'm going to read the first few parts of it because it has to do with the 5th of November, when Guy Fawkes was supposed to set off these explosives, killing the Lords of London. And it goes like this. Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Now, there are several more lines of it, but those are the ones I really, really like. All right, now let's tie this together with the Colonial Pipeline. As you know, it has been shut down, so they say, by hackers. I think it's I could almost predict that they were going to blame it on the Russians because everything goes wrong in our nation. They're blaming it on the Russians. Why? Because they're trying to stir up the Russians' anger toward America. Why? Because probably there will be a time, hopefully in the far future, but it might be the near future, where they attack and destroy America. So what's really going on with the Colonial Pipeline? Do you really believe it was hackers that shut it down? Or do you really think it was the people that own the oil lines shutting it down? Well, why would they want to shut it down? Okay, well, I'll tell you that. So back in 1973, at that time, I was raised in Odessa, Texas. I was raised in the oil field. I mean, all of my friends all worked in the oil field. When I was in grade school, their parents were in the oil field. I mean, I was raised in right smack dab in the middle. As a matter of fact, across the street from where the house where I was raised up in, there was a pump jack. Still to this day, I can tell you how it sounded. Click, click. Click, click. Because I heard it 24 hours a day. Well, it didn't run 24 hours a day, but when it was running, I certainly heard it. In 1973, they had what they called an oil crisis. The Arabs, apparently, had cut off oil to the United States. And there were long gasoline lines all across the United States, except there weren't any gasoline lines in West Texas. Why? Because that's where they took most of the oil out of the ground from. And they knew that we would know better. See, because my friends in high school now were the guys, because this is 1973, I graduated high school in 72. So all of my friends were the ones that worked out in the oil field. They were the ones that drove the truck to go up and pump the oil out of the big tank batteries, these giant storage tanks, and take it over to the refineries. And the ones that worked in the refineries, they were the roughnecks and the people that did the oil servicing. I mean, like one bumper sticker you would see from time to time: oil feeds my family and pays my taxes. That's true, and it's still true today. I don't live in West Texas anymore, but it's still true today, meaning the conspiracy controls both sides. The cabal controls both sides of the issue, just like when the North went to the bankers and they said, we need money to fight the South. They said, okay, that's fine. We'll give you the money to fight the South, but you have to agree to that if you win, you will also guarantee and be willing to pay off the debts of the South. Then, of course, when the North gets the money, then the South comes to the bankers and said, we need money to fight the North. And the bankers say, well, that's fine. We'll give you the money, but you have to agree to pay off the debt of the North if you win. If they can't pay it off, you have to pay it off. In other words, they're in the middle. They're financing both sides of it, but they're financing in such a way they don't care who wins. But they're going to get paid. Well, it's the same thing with the oil right now, the Colonial Pipeline. I can't prove what I'm about to say, but this is the way it works. The Colonial Pipeline is probably, and I have not done the research on it, probably someone listening now will probably send me the research on it, and that's fine. I might put it on the air. If we could research it, the Colonial Pipeline is probably owned or at least controlled by the cabal. And the people that shut it down, be they really hackers or simply people in positions of authority, just were told to shut it down, and so they shut it down. But rest assured, the people that own the oil and the people that told them to shut the oil down or shut the gasoline pipeline down, it's the same group. They control both sides of the equation. I think it is the Moloch and Baal worshippers attacking America again, basically saying, don't arrest us or we'll cause you great pain. Just like we brought a massive ice storm, cold snap down to all of Texas, we're going to do it again. We're going to shut off your gasoline supply. We will shut off your food supply. Okay, well, now that brings us to the point of today. I've got several dreams and visions here from people that have seen that a massive food shortage is coming. Now, what did Goering say? You can control the people by putting fear in them, and then they'll do whatever you want them to do. Okay. Now, here's a new one. This comes to us from Jason Meeks. He's one of the pastors, one of the churches that we oversee. 5/11/2021. He says, Stan and I and 20 other people were at the back of a grocery store. The group walked from the back into the main store to purchase some Tang, which should have cost about $1, but the price was now $5.99. Then we saw all the prices of goods on the shelf were at least 30 to 40% higher than last week. We bought the item, headed to the back once again, but instead of it being stocked full of merchandise, it was cleaned out. Where there were pallets of goods and shrink-wrapped on rack, those had been removed. It looked like a flea market. People had their food protected by just 2x4s and chicken wire, not to keep things locked up as anyone could easily break into their individual sections, but more to just keep each person's goods separated. I saw crackers, old canned goods, non-perishable foods, all kinds of random items, all new. One man was selling the goods at super high prices, not trying to cheat people, but just trying to feed his family. This was his job, his only job, reselling items that he had recently purchased from others, just trying to make a little profit. Now, there's a couple of headlines that relate to this. Food prices lead nations, escalating inflation woes. I'll read it again. Food prices lead nations, escalating inflation woes. So food prices will have a lot to do with inflation or things getting very expensive. Here's another headline. Cisco and Kraft considers guards on delivery trucks as food nears 40% of the family budget. Now, I read all of this next dream from David Phillips a couple of days ago, so I'm not going to read all of it, just the point. March 2021, David Phillips had a dream. He had gone on to a vacation, a camping trip. When he arrived, now I'm skipping to the point, all of a sudden, it was like we were living in the Old West. We stopped into an area. One person was selling food. He was selling crackers, Ritz crackers. He was selling them individually. He wanted $1,000 per cracker. The main thing people wanted was food. People had no such money, so they trade what items they did have for food. People became very dangerous during this time. Well, what did we talk about in yesterday's program? Let's go on here. Out of desperation, even families would try to work together to try to survive. People would steal anything they could get their hands on, even out in the open, and were willing to risk extreme danger for it. Now let's get to the second dream David had just right after that one. Only a sentence or two here. Surprisingly, no authorities would be called so long as nobody had been hurt very badly. They were doing this because of their desperate need of food. Once again, I read this one just recently, so I'm just going to get to the point on this one too. This comes to us from Prophet Leslie Johnson. They were not able to get food at this amusement park. They were leaving it in droves. But when they left without their shoes. They were all barefoot and very hungry. Okay, so it's a picture of Americans at an amusement park that had been having fun, but now all of a sudden there's no food and they're barefoot and hungry. I think probably the number one fear Americans have is being barefoot and hungry. They were all looking for food, begging for even one piece of bread to give them. Now, a person might want to say, Stan, come on. You know that there's never going to be any food shortage in America. Well, actually, I don't know that. And so when we have Jason Meeks, 2 from David Phillips, 1 from Prophet Leslie Johnson, and they're all basically saying barefoot and hungry, and all of these are in the last 6 months. Now, what does that mean? See, we've all heard that there's going to be some kind of a big earthquake out in California, but we've been hearing that for 50 years. But if all of a sudden there was a bunch of people having dreams or visions about an earthquake in California, that might be signaling to us that it's getting very, very close. So in this case, with lines for gasoline, we can easily start saying, okay, this is real. This is real. If we haven't got preparations for food for our family, then now is the time to do that. And of course, it helps your prophecy club. If you go to heavensharvest.com and enter the promo code STAN to order some food. And yes, I've checked with him. He has a nice supply of food. And right now, any kind of food in terms of long-term storage food is hard to find. But the freeze-dried food, the good stuff, this is the stuff you just add water to and eat. Okay, boiling water, but you can eat it. And it's relatively good tasting as compared to some of the other long-term storage food. Anyway, heavensharvest.com, use the promo code STAN. My suggestion is you ask yourself this question. If you cannot, for safety's sake, or for maybe it's the law, whatever, if you cannot leave the 4 walls of your home, you must stay in your home for a year. What do you need to do so? I'd recommend that you have some gold and silver, the gold to buy you a way out of the nation or some drastic thing like that, and silver for day-to-day items. And, of course, I'd recommend you call cornerstoneassetmetals.com for that and mention Prophecy Club. That way they help us. They pay for some of our radio time. And if you think that either the suitcase nukes or the Russians are going to really attack, as I do, then I recommend you have EMPShield.com, one of their devices on your home. I have one in my home. I have it on both of our cars. I put it in myself. It was not hard to put in. And just go to EMPShield.com and put in the promo code PROPHECY there. And, of course, that helps your Prophecy Club. Now, let me continue what I'm trying to say here. I feel, how do I say this? I feel a fear. Maybe that's the way to say it. I feel a fear in my heart over this food thing. I don't think that gasoline is going to be a big problem. Matter of fact, I do not have one dream or vision from anybody saying that there's going to be a gasoline shortage. But I have several of them that says that there's going to be a food shortage. So, yes, it's a good idea to have some gasoline stored up. Be sure and put that gasoline preservative in it so it doesn't spoil, because just like milk, it will spoil. It lasts about 2 months, and I'm not going to get into all of that detail. But you do need to make some preparations to preserve your gasoline so it won't go bad. I'll say that. Now, one more thing. I read this one yesterday, the day before, from Pastor Massey, so I'm going to get right to the point here. So May 28th, this is the night before, I said, Lord, I appreciate you giving me all of these dreams, but they're kind of like a bug's eye view. And I need you to give me a picture of them kind of strung together so I can get a picture of an overview of where we're going. The next morning, and I specifically asked him to speak to either Pastor Massey or to Leslie. The next morning he calls. Had a dream, I don't understand it. Well, I believe it was answered for my prayer. Now let me get to the point. He said, we came home, someone dropped off 2 children at my house. One girl thought that we were the best people to care for these people. They were scared because they had no food. There was no food where they were living. Let's put that together. Okay, so we got Pastor Massey, Prophet Leslie with 1, 2 dreams from Phillips, and then 1 dream from Jason Meeks. And this, well, these are all in the last, I guess the one from Pastor Massey is back in 2016. All the rest of them have been in the last 6-9 months. To me, I think that's saying, I mean, I went to the storage place that I have my food stored, which is walking distance from my house, and I looked at it, and I stood there and looked at that stack of food, and I said, now, Stan, is that going to feed you and Leslie? Yes. But my next question is, Stan, is that going to feed other people in your neighborhood? No, we don't have enough. So I'm seriously considering calling heavensharvest.com and getting some more food, because I was being interviewed back before Y2K, one of the radio stations that was trying to attack me, and he says, so do you have some food preparations for the Y2K coming out? I said, yes, I do. Well, when people come to your house and they're hungry, are you going to give them food? And I said, yes, I am. He said, what do you do when it runs out? I said, then we believe God. And I said, and if not, what a wonderful, wonderful way to go when you're giving your meals away to those people around you that are starving. What a wonderful way to go, because I gave it all away. And he didn't have anything to say to that. But the point is, yes, we need to have some for ourselves, but we probably need to have some for our neighbors too. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. I remember I don't remember who, but I remember somebody had a dream that during the tribulation, during the mark of the beast, that they would bow their heads and pray over an empty plate, thanking the Lord for this food. And then when they opened their eyes, the plate was full of food. And that's how they ate during the time of the mark of the beast. In March of 2010, Michael Boldea had a visit from an angel in a dream. Now, I'm going to skip that part of it. Let me get down to the very bottom part. Then the man with the sickle turned and looked at me and said, now here's the point, the world will know hunger, the faithful will know the power of their God. I'll say it again. The world will know hunger, the faithful will know the power of their God. I believe that all of this is only going to be a test. And that is, are we going to get fearful? Are we going to turn to the ways of the world? Or are we going to get strong in our Lord? Is our prayer closet going to protect us? Is our God going to provide for us? I believe those people that have a prayer closet have a right relationship with the Lord, and they're not just living in the world, for the world, trying to survive in the world, but they're living in the world for the kingdom, trying to build the kingdom. Those people are going to be the ones that are taken care of. The world will know hunger. The faithful will know the power of their God. Now, what I would suggest you do, I think that this whole thing with the gasoline is another thing just like the suitcase nukes. I think the cabal is threatening the military intelligence. Trump, whoever you want to say, is in the process of arresting them. They know some of these arrests are taking place, and I suspect that that's the real reason all of those National Guards were called in the first part of January into Washington, D.C. when they put up fences, because they were afraid at that time that a battalion of tanks would come in and take over the Washington, D.C. then. But that didn't happen then. But now the National Guard are gone. And those little fences there wouldn't stop a battalion of tanks. It wouldn't even slow them down. They wouldn't even have to slow down a little bit to run over those and just go right on in and do what they need to do. So I suspect that the cabal is scared out of their mind. And this is what Benjamin Fulford is saying too, and several other people. The cabal is scared out of their mind because they know that they are losing power. Just like with a scared rabbit. Any kind of an animal, if you back an animal into the corner, they will come out of the corner fighting to the best of their ability. Well, that's what the cabal is doing. It is fighting with every scratch it possibly can. And one of the ways it fights is with bringing a giant cold snap to Texas and Oklahoma, cutting off our gasoline, and so you can count on it, they're probably going to be cutting off our food too. Whatever they can do to threaten these people, not to arrest them, but to allow them to continue to stay in charge. And if America is going to continue, we must put a stop to this. We must do the arrest. We must remove the cabal so that we can have a few more years. Other than that, if we don't clean ourselves, God will clean us. But he'll clean us by the Russians attacking with nuclear weapons. I want to say something else too, just kind of from the bottom of my heart. My heart has been to teach Bible prophecy. I absolutely love teaching Bible prophecy. And if you will spend the money, take the time, and come to this School of the Watchmen, June 11 to 13, I promise you will walk out not only happy and excited, but you will walk out prepared to really teach the book of Revelation. And for that matter, the rest of the prophecies. This is not going to be me talk, you listen. This is going to be a discussion. As we go through step by step, verse by verse, through the book of Revelation, you can ask questions. I'll stop and answer it, and I'll explain. And you and I are going to have a wonderful time together for about 15 hours studying the book of Revelation. We're going to go through it. And yes, I think it'd be very important that you write out the book of Revelation, but it's not a requirement. What is a requirement is that if you believe in Bible prophecy, if you want to learn Bible prophecy, even if you don't want to teach it, you should come to School of the Watchmen, June 11 to 13, and you get signed up by going to prophecyclub.com. It is going to be absolutely awesome. I lay hands on you, anoint you with revelation oil for you to receive the revelation spirit that I got when I memorized the book of Revelation. And God has said that I may pass that on, and I have passed that on to many people, and I want to pass it on to you too. School of the Watchmen, prophecyclub.com, June 11 to 13. Get signed up now. And one more thing, if you need some kind of long-term storage food, I suggest you call heavensharvest.com. Use the promo code STAN. You'll get good quality food that you can really eat. If you're needing gold, silver, some kind of precious metals, you call cornerstoneassetmetals.com, mention Prophecy Club. If you need some kind of an EMP protection device, it's empshield.com. Promo code is prophecy. If you're needing a Berkey water filter, go to prophecyclub.com. Brothers and sisters, I really believe time is running out on a lot of these things are about to hit us. Get prepared. If you're really looking for the truth about the rapture, I honestly believe you will find it in this book. The truth is the Holy Spirit knows the truth about the rapture. And one of the reasons that the people other than post-trib can't seem to find peace about this is because the Holy Spirit is trying to tell them that they don't have the truth. That is, until they find post-trib. But either way, this is going to help you to find the peace about the rapture. I really recommend you get it. We offer them in shrink-wrap sets of 10. 1 for 20, 10 for 30, and 20 for 50 at prophecyclub.com. You can have instant access to over 200 titles, $6,000 worth of information at watchprophecyclub.com.